Support for Seattle Now comes from Lazarus Naturals CBD. Since 2014, maker of non-GMO, hemp-derived CBD products. From the farm to the front door, all of their products are made in the Northwest and crafted in-house, allowing for end-to-end control. They offer a full line of topicals, tinctures, and pet products at LazarusNaturals.com.
Hey, it's Patricia Murphy. It's Thursday, and this is Seattle Now. Mail-in ballots went out yesterday, and most eyes are on national politics right now. But Washington State's 10th Congressional District has an interesting twist. Voters are deciding between two Democrats. In a minute, KUOW political reporter David Hyde will explain. But first, let's get you caught up. The 30-member committee, who will recommend how Seattle spends $100 million aimed at equitable communities, has been named. The investment from the city follows months of protests for racial justice. The task force formed by Mayor Durkan has been criticized for straying from the original stated purpose of supporting the Black community specifically. State Health Officer Kathy Lofi resigned from her post and will leave by the end of the year. Lofi says she's going to take some time to be a mom and reconnect with friends. Secretary of Health John Wiesman is also leaving at the end of the year for a faculty appointment at the University of North Carolina. And today is the Great Shakeout, the day we're all supposed to practice and envision what we would do if there was an earthquake. Just as a reminder, you're supposed to drop, cover, and hold on. Kind of like 2020. Washington might not be a battleground state in this November's presidential election, but in parts of the state, there's a battle underway over the future of the Democratic Party. The race for Washington's 10th Congressional District pits two Democrats against each other. In the blue corner, former Tacoma Mayor Marilyn Strickland, and in the other blue corner, State Representative Beth Doglio, a former climate activist who won Bernie Sanders' endorsement. KUOW's David Hyde is here to tell us how they're squaring up. And heads up, there are a lot of birds in David's backyard where he's working. Hi, David.
Hi, Trish.
Okay, so first, let's orient ourselves. The 10th District is near Olympia and has parts of Pierce, Thurston, and Mason counties in it. What should we know about the 10th?
Kind of a fun fact, if you're newish to Seattle, Washington, up until recently, actually had 9 congressional districts, but the population exploded, so the 10th got created after the 2010 census, and it's a lot less liberal than Seattle. As you're driving south, in fact, from Seattle, if you start and picture Seattle kind of through a deep blue lens, it gets progressively lighter in color, lighter blue. This is a district that, as you mentioned, includes Olympia, West Tacoma, places where Trump was very, very unpopular, but also suburban areas and some rural areas where Trump did really well. And there are a lot of GOP voters here. Political consultant Ben Anderstone tells me he expects 40% of ballots cast this year to come from Republican voters who only have a choice between these two blue candidates.
Okay, so fascinating. A Democrat against a Democrat, clearly putting Republicans in a funny position. Let's talk about the candidates, though. What do they stand for?
Beth Doglio, state representative, climate activist, and she's running, as you mentioned, kind of as the progressive, more lefty candidate in this race. She supports the Green New Deal. She supports Medicare for all. She also represents an important first if she wins. She'd be the first openly LGBTQ person elected to Congress from Washington state ever. Marilyn Strickland, in the other corner, she's the former mayor of Tacoma. Folks in Seattle know her as the former head of the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. She's sort of more business friendly, running as a centrist, kind of think Obama, Biden, Democrat. Sounds more like Joe Biden on the issues than Bernie Sanders. She also represents two firsts. She would be the first Black person elected to Congress from the Northwest ever. That's Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Alaska, Wyoming, any of those states. She'd also be the first Korean-American woman elected to Congress ever.
Okay, so a lot of firsts in this race, David.
Yeah, exactly.
So why is the 10th significant? We talked about how it's a newer district based on population growth, but how does the battle for the direction of the Democratic Party in our state play into what we're seeing shake down on the national stage?
Yeah, it's one of only 2 blue-on-blue congressional races in the country this year. So we've got Democrats paying attention to this race, weighing in on both sides. For Doglio, Elizabeth Warren. You mentioned Bernie Sanders. Those are two of her biggest endorsers. Sanders, of course, was in town recently for his own campaign. Doglio also got the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is co-chaired by Seattle Representative Pramila Jayapal. Jayapal told me she got 100%, a perfect score on her questionnaire. Doglio also gets various labor and environmental groups, teachers unions, LGBTQ groups, local tribes in her district, and a big list of state elected officials. For Strickland, there's the Congressional Black Caucus, groups that are working to get Asian Americans elected to Congress. When it comes to labor, the SEIU is one of her bigger endorsers, and just generally speaking, more business-friendly groups and Democrats in this kind of Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden mold. She's got former Governor Gary Locke, Chris Gregoire, and Andrew Yang, presidential candidate at one time, who you could argue is also kind of one of these business-friendly Democrats.
David, Andrew Yang isn't the only big-name endorsement that Strickland is getting.
Right. The biggest was definitely celebrity Snoop Dogg, which she found out about on this talk show when the host asked her if she could rap a Snoop song.
If you could rap a Snoop lyric, I'm sure he'd be down.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kind of hard being Snoop Double G, but
hey!
David, I find it fascinating that she knew that Snoop Dogg's real first name was Calvin.
Yeah, and I think kind of impressive just for the spontaneity of it, but I'd say maybe it's a good thing that Strickland picked a career in politics.
Rap battles, probably not in her future. What does this tell us about Washington's political future and the direction of Democratic politics here?
We're in a blue state. I was speaking to historian Margaret O'Mara at the University of Washington, who studies political history, and we were talking about the fact that especially in Western Washington, Republicans have become practically irrelevant to the conversation in many places, like this race here in the 10th. And it's really much more of a case of which type of Democrats Washingtonians prefer. That's kind of where the battle is at right now.
We're also seeing this divide within the Democratic Party, and Western Washington is, at this point, kind of various shades of blue. There are many politicians here at the local level and some at the state level that in any other place would be seen as, I guess, a liberal Democrat, and here are relatively centrist or conservative.
Even in Seattle, you're seeing this with Mayor Durkin and the Seattle City Council. Republicans have become almost irrelevant to the conversation here in Western Washington when it comes to governance, at least for now. And really the question is, which shade of blue are voters going to prefer?
Well, David, Democrat against Democrat, that's the wild, wild west as we know it right now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Trish.
Seattle Now is produced by Sophie Reed, Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.